Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure for me to be here today. I'm calling from New York. My name is Eduardo Jarrín, and I am having a presentation about an approach to reading. Okay, this is on behalf of Instituto Tecnológico Ispade, so it's a pleasure for me to be here, as I said before. And right now, we're going to have a little insight of what reading is, because the problem for many people, for students, for teachers, uh, comes when it gets down to reading. Reading normally we understand as a skill in which we are supposed to have just reading and comprehension exercises, but it goes beyond that. So it becomes a problem because when students have a text, they think that they have to understand the whole text to be able to answer the questions, which is not true. They don't have to understand the whole text. Nobody does. So today we're going to be checking some techniques that might help people to understand better the task and to be able to complete and to answer the questions in an effective way. Okay? So, as I said before, normally when we have a reading task in front of us, it becomes overwhelming because we see a maze of letters and we get desperate because we try to translate every single word which we see on the paper, and that is a mistake. Uh, we have to understand something which is very important. Normally, reading tasks or reading exams have limitations of time. And because of that, we have to learn to maximize the time we are given to answer these questions. And that's what we're going to do. So, normally, this is something that teachers don't cover, but we are going to be taking a look at today. For example, did you know that when we talk about reading, there are three things which are assessed or evaluated when reading? Uh, Let me share this with you so you can have a better idea. And it is, there are three things which we have to understand in order to complete the answers or to answer effectively if you want. When we talk about reading, there are three things which have to be covered. One is gist, which means main idea. We have reading for gist, obviously, reading for details, and reading for specific information. These are the three things which are covered in all the tasks involving reading. So we have to learn to handle each one of them in an efficient way to have an outcome which is better or has a good grade if you want to see it from the point of view of grades, or talking about personal growth, uh, a better outcome in terms of understanding what we read better. Okay, so there are three things, as I said before, that is reading for gist, reading for details, and reading for specific information. That's what we have to cover. Okay, so right now, let's go with how this is distributed. It is distributed like this. Okay, we have gist, or when we have an exercise, we can have these three different types of exercises. Sometimes we have an exercise which involves gist and details. Some other times we may have an exercise which involves gist and specific information. And some other times we might have an exercise which involves gist, details, and specific information. But if you pay attention to the three options that we may have in front of us, one is repeated in the three. It is gist. That is because we always have to understand what the main idea is. If we don't set our foot down on the ground to understand what the objective of the reading is, then we're going to fail. So normally that is what we have to do, and that is what nobody does, because people get desperate and they just go to the text and start trying to read everything, without understanding. So first of all, we have to detach from that aspect. When we detach from that aspect, I mean to understand in general terms what the reading is about. So we have these three things, right? Gist, which is always going to be used. We can use skimming. This technique, which means checking the first and the last. It depends. If it is an article, it is going to be the first paragraph and the last paragraph. If it is a paragraph, it is going to be the first sentence and the last sentence. If it is a book, we check the cover and the back cover of the book. That is when we go to a bookstore or when we go to a supermarket and we grab a book, we don't stop there and read the whole book to understand what it is about. We look at the cover, we check the back, and we have an idea. That is skimming exactly. Now, transporting that into reading, we have an article which has 6 paragraphs. What we have to understand, what we have to do to understand what it is about is to read the first part of the article and the last part of the article. Obviously, because the first part includes the topic sentence, and the last part includes the conclusion. Then we have a general idea of what the topic is, and then we can place ourselves better into that position in which our mental structure is going to work towards the vocabulary that might appear there. Okay, so as I said before, this is a skimming, and the other option is for details and specific information, we use scanning. Scanning is widely known by most people. We will take a look at that a little bit later. But let me tell apart the difference between details and specific information. Many people get confused here. They are not the same. Details involve an idea, a sentence, a proposition. Specific information, that is a number, a place, a name, a color, I don't know. That is a specific. Short. Detail, because people get confused. They think that, for example, a year is detail. No, a year is specific information. As I said before, detail means detailed information. And to have detailed information, we need to have at least one sentence to understand it, okay? So having clarified this, let's go into a little exercise, or let's concentrate on to what skimming is. For gist, there are different ways. As I said before, one is to read the first and read the last. Another very good option for skimming is to look at the pictures and look at the titles if we have a title. If we don't have a title, because sometimes that is what the exercise involves, we look at the pictures and read the first and the last. Let me show you an example. Okay, here we have, for example, a little bit redundant, but it's okay. 4 pictures, right? So let's suppose that we are in a class. We are trying to make students practice what reading is. So I will show, or I will display these 4 pictures, and I have them talk in pairs about what they can see and what they think the topic is. So obviously, if they pay attention to this, they are going to see that they are museums, right? So they are going to say, all right, so in open class, when you ask them, okay, what did you see in the pictures? What do you think it is about? They are going to come out with the word museum. Somebody is. I mean, it is going to happen because the pictures are evident. So the moment that it is, or they have their mental structure set on museums, it is much easier to work with the exercise because they know that all the vocabulary involved in that reading is going to be connected to museums. So works of art, expensive things, strange things, all exhibitions, prices, costs, I don't know, whatever is connected to museums, right? So in this is, for example, one way to make them understand gist. Now, talking about the same type of exercise, let me show you a different option. Another option is this, okay? I give out this handout and tell them, okay, you have 30 seconds to tell me what a title for this reading might be, okay? So obviously what they are going to do is they are going to read the first part and the last part. So 30 seconds. I know that it may sound exaggerated, but it's not. It is the perfect time to do it. Okay, let's say 40 seconds if it's just starting. Because what the students are going to do is this. They're going to read this. If you're bored of traditional museums, then perhaps it's time to try something new. Magically for visit some of the strangest museums on the planet. Strangest museums. And the last part, okay? The best exhibits probably the cheeseburger. Okay, so they're talking about hamburgers and strangest museums. Or strange museums. Okay, so you say, what do you think the article is about? They are going to tell you, okay, it is about strange museums, not common museums, not typical museums, not usual museums, weird museums, rare museums, museums which are not easily whatever. It depends on the level in which your students are, but they are going to come up with that idea. If it is not the perfect title or the exact title, it doesn't matter as long as it gets closer, because the idea of GIST is just to have students get connected with the reading task. So this moment they are going to be connected with the reading tasks because they understand, or they could see, that it's about, first of all, if you show the pictures, that it's about museums. If they do scheming, with the first part and the last part of the article, they are going to come up with the idea of a strange museum, a crazy museum, a weird museum, an unusual museum, an untypical museum, whatever, right? So something which is according to that. And then obviously, you display the answer, and then you have that it is the world's weirdest museums. Okay, so the world's weirdest museums. So what is it? What does, then you can have in open class a little bit of conversation. Say, okay, what do you think a weird museum has? Because, or what is typical in a museum? They are going to tell you, oh, what is typical is pictures, paintings, sculptures, right? So if it is a weird museum, they are not going to find paintings, maybe. They are not going to have sculptures, maybe. They are not going to find pieces of art. They are going to find some crazy stuff or some crazy options. And that's the idea of the article, right? So the moment that they have this gist, okay, understood, and they have it in their grasp, it is much easier to take the next step and go for details or specific information depending on the task that they have to complete. So if we go into that, let's go with this. It says, read the article again, okay, and answer these questions. Oh, there are 5 questions here. It says, in which 2 places can you see the Museum of Bad Art? Okay, so this is detailed or specific information? What do you think? Who was Imelda Marcos and how many shoes did she have? This is detailed or specific information? How can you explore the Cancun Underwater Museum? This would be detailed information. Why is the Mediterranean Wonderland huge and tiny at the same time? What can you see at the Hamburger Museum? So here you have some questions that involve details or involve specific information. Now, the answer is, how do we, or how can we effectively respond to this? As one of the first slides in the presentation, you could see it said scanning. So here it's another problem, because scanning means spotting the information and going into that point to read slowly or with more details. That section specifically of the article. So how do we do this? We can do this by highlighting words. Okay, for example, in which 2 places? Okay, in which 2 places can you see the Museum of Bad Art? So what you can tell your students is that when they have this type of questions, they can play with synonyms. Okay, they can change the questions to make them more accessible and more understandable to them personally. So if you say, in which 2 places can you see the Museum of Bad Art? So I have to find 2 locations in which I have the Museum of Bad Art. Or the Museum of Bad Art is in 2 places. Which are the 2 places? So when they have, okay, 2 places for bad art, 2 places for bad art, if they play with that in their heads, when they go to the text and start scanning, they are going to know what to look for. Okay? And then, who was Imelda Marcos and how many shoes did she have? Oh, here we have. You have a very helpful hint here, which is a name. So whenever you observe the name in the reading, you stop in that part and read that area. And then it says, how many shoes did she have? So what do they have to look for? A number. All right, so they can scan, because scanning means going through the text quickly, and whenever they see a number, they spot. Obviously, a number which is associated with the name. Okay? Number 3, How can you explore the Cancun Underwater Museum? It is the same. You have a name, Cancun, right? Which is in Mexico. You have Underwater Museum. There you have two names which can help you scan the information. So you don't have to go reading line by line in detail, absolutely the whole article to find that part. You can go quickly through the lines, and whenever you see those names, you stop, you spot where it is, and then you answer. Okay? Then, why is the Minotaur Wonderland huge and tiny at the same time? Equal, you have a name which makes it easier. And the number 6, what can you see at the Hamburger Museum? Okay, so let's go back to the text and see how we can do, right? So here it says, remember we needed 2 locations for the Museum of Bot Art. So if you start the scanning, if you go, scanning goes like this, and then you have Bot Art. See line number 3, you can see there, you can spot there. It says, the Museum of Art in Massachusetts, USA. Is the only museum, okay? Place, and you can also visit it online. Oh, okay. So we have 2 spots. Yes or no? Yes. Online. And where else? Massachusetts. Then you have the 2 locations. Do you remember the other one? It was who was, and you had a name, and how many shoes that person had, right? So if you have that name, let me see, you don't have a shoes, but you can have, you start scanning again. Oh, Imelda Marcos, there it is, right? Like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, there it is. Museum of Philippines. Museums in Imelda Marcos massive shoe collection. Her husband was the president. Oh, so she was the wife to the president of Philippines. And she has over 3,000 pairs of shoes. The number is there. Yeah. And like that, you continue going over the rest of the questions. And if you pay attention right now, I am already in the second paragraph, and I didn't have the necessity to read all the lines in detail because this information doesn't have to become memorable. Okay? This information is useful for me right now just to answer the questions. What is the mistakes students normally make is they try to read everything they have in the text and they try to understand everything they have there, word by word. And that is when desperation gains space and they feel overwhelmed because whenever there is a word they don't understand, they stop and they get blocked and they cannot continue. And this frustration feeling comes, right? I don't understand English. I don't know what I'm doing here, whatever. So this is a way to tackle down that barrier which sometimes stops them from learning or becoming more efficient in the things they do. Effectively, knowing exactly what they have to look for is going to help them succeed in reading, as I am showing you right now with the example. The other was about the Underwater Museum. You have it in the paragraph number 3. Okay, the other was why the other museum is huge and tiny at the same time. You have the information in the next. And then the other was what can you see in the Hamburger Museum, right? So there you have burger shaped biscuit jars, clogs, hats, music boxes, pencil, etc., etc., etc. So obviously, when it comes to the answers, it is going to be like this, right? It is going to be, okay, so in which 2 places can you see the Museum of Bad Art? In Massachusetts, USA, and online, which is the 2 things that we checked. The other, who was this woman and how many pairs of shoes did she have? Oh, she was the wife to the president. She was the wife to the president of the Philippines, and she had over 3,000 pairs of shoes. The other, how can you explore the underwater museum in Cancun, Mexico? It says you can dive or snorkel to explore the museum, or you can hire a glass bottom boat. That was the information in the 3rd paragraph. Why the other museum is called huge and tiny at the same time? And it is because it is a very large museum. Okay, so the location, the places, the menus, which hundreds of trains and thousands of people. But all of these museums are very small, so it is huge and tiny because the location is big, but the objects inside are small. That's why. And the last, what can you see in the museum, the Hamburger Museum? You can see burger-shaped biscuits, jars, cloths, hats, boxes, yeah, all the things which were listed there. And but these are the answers then, and they are going to find the answers. And if you pay attention to the text, it is not an easy text. Okay, it's not like a very simple or elemental or basic text. It is not. But if the students know how to apply the techniques correctly, they are going to be able to respond in an effective way as well. Okay, so the answers are over there. But the most important thing is they didn't have the necessity to go through the whole text, understanding every single line and consequently every single word of the text, which is normally, and I am going to insist on this, which is normally what gets them frustrated because when they are checking something, and that happens to all of us when we're learning another language, okay? Uh, Whenever we are reading something and we have a word which we are not familiar with, we get stuck there. We don't want to continue reading because we feel frustrated and overwhelmed, as I said before. So that is what we have to try to avoid by showing them that they don't have to understand the whole text to be able to answer. Because what they have to do is to go for what they specifically need, okay? Which is going to be always gist, number one, always gist, because they have to place themselves in that position in which they have to know what the vocabulary is going to be about, what the main ideas of the article are going to be about, etc. Always gist. And the other options are going to be details or specific information. It's always going to be like that. Always. Okay? Let me have a comparison to picture it in a better way. It's like when you go shopping, you go to a supermarket because you need to go shopping. It is not that you grab all the products you have in the supermarket. Just imagine you would never leave. If you're going to prepare some sort of food, okay, you know which the ingredients are, and you go exactly to that section in which you find those ingredients. You don't have to be aisle by aisle looking at all the products. I need this. I don't need this. No, 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 no. You know, it's section 3. You go to section 3. Section 5. You go to section 5, and you pick up the things you need. Here it is exactly the same. Exactly the same. If they understand the questions well, that's why I told you before, make them play with the questions, make them change the questions, make them uh, use synonyms into the questions so that they can understand for themselves the questions better. So if they know exactly what they have to look for, it's going to be easier for them to scan the text. And again, they are not going to read the whole article to be able to answer. Now, something else, because we can also use articles to teach them or use reading to teach them critical thinking or to check or review some sort of topic or vocabulary which is necessary for them to develop. And that's why we have this. I don't know if you noticed, but if you pay attention in the article, you have some words which are with different colors. Then you have something with blue and something with red, right? So it's for this exercise. Let's go back and you have the words in blue and the words in red. The words in blue are here. They are the examples. You have them with numbers, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And they have, okay, choose the correct meaning, A or B. This would be specific information. Wondered. So wondered. What is wondered? Okay, you have two options. Walked around slowly or walked around quickly. So you go back to the text and it says, have you ever wandered around the famous art gallery looking at paintings by Will? Okay, so in an art gallery, if you're there to look at the art, right, you walk slowly or you walk quickly. Evidently using common sense, critical thinking, you walk slowly. then you have the answer. So wander is walk around slowly. So this forces, but this is an extra exercise, okay? This forces them to go back to the text, read that section where the colored word is, and then they choose. And you're teaching them vocabulary. Oh, let me rephrase that. They are teaching themselves vocabulary because they are coming up with the conclusion by getting the information from context, not by opening a dictionary, or not by the teacher telling them what it is. Then you have well known. So it is common or famous, bizarre, expensive or strange, highlight, etc. So they go back to the text and they check all these things, right? Highlight, etc., etc., etc. And then you have words in red. So here you have the words in red. You have checkout, massive, displayed, sculptures, breathtaking, miniature, track, and impressive. So this is an extra exercise, reading for specific information, or reading for details. Okay, specific information would be the word, but the detail would be the explanation. They can go back to the text, read that section where the word is. That's what I say. They spot that section, and then they are going to complete here. They are going to complete using what type of word it is and what it means. So the first is check out. So if we go here, okay, well, perhaps you should check out the Museum of Art in Massachusetts. Okay, you should check out. You should visit, visually look at that museum in detail. Okay, observe. I don't know. And what kind of word is it? Oh, it's a verb. Depending on the level, that is an intermediate level or an advanced level, but they are going to tell you it's a phrasal verb. That is an intermediate level, not upper intermediate or basic level. Maybe they tell you it's a verb, which is fine. In both cases, it is okay. Okay, then they are going to tell you observe, visit it, walk around, whatever, right? Then you have the next word, which is massive. So it says, the highlight of this museum is Imelda Marcos' massive shoe collection. When her husband was president, she was from 3,000 pair. Okay, if it is 3,000 pair of shoes, that is a massive thing. Is it something small or is it something big? Is it something which is insignificant or is something huge? So they are going to work with this, and you can make them work in pairs because always collaborative work gets the best out of them. So you can make them work together and they're going to come out with the answers. And then you have massive, you have displayed, sculptures, breathtaking, etc., etc., etc. As I was telling you before, this is the idea. So if you have them, you can make them work in pairs, and then you monitor the work they are doing, right? To make sure they get the right answers. If they don't get the right answers, you just give them hints, okay, to help them. And then once you monitor and know which couple or which pair has the best or has the correct answer, you nominate them to say it in open class so that all of them feel rewarded for having the right answer. And then you have a feedback at the end, which is the best thing to do, is to have them comment on what this exercise was like, if they liked it or not, how you could make it better. But believe me, it always works, and they are going to feel more confident. Okay, the more you practice, the better they are going to feel about it. But you're going to get them to feel more confident because they are going to be able to get the answers in an easier way than before. Because obviously, it is not a process which is going to happen from one day to the next. It is going to take some time because kids are not normally, or people are not normally trained under these conditions. But once they get adjusted, they get used to doing this, believe me, they are going to enjoy reading more. And then they are going to feel better about it. This is going to give them the confidence they need with the language. So they will be better students and the classes are going to be more productive and they are going to produce longer stretches of conversation because they are going to feel more confident with everything. Okay, and getting back to this, here are the answers for that, right? As I said, regular verb or phrasal verb, depending on the level. to go to a place to see what it is like, or to observe, yeah, whatever. Add massive adjective, very big. Display the verb, organized in a way that public can see it, or exhibition, etc., etc., etc. Right here, there is no perfect answer, right? As long as they are synonyms, you accept them. Probably you guide them through the best words, the best options for that. And that is the approach to reading that I wanted to share with you today. And I hope it is helpful. I hope it is helpful, and I hope you can really use the information given out today to make your classes more dynamic and to make your classes more adjusted to what academic reading is. So let's recap a little bit. So whenever we have reading, we have three things which are considered for reading exercises. That is gist, reading for gist, reading for details, reading for specific information. Gist is always present in all the exercises, and it is a must to do because they need to know what it is about. Okay, they need to know what it is about to be able to focus on the vocabulary they might use. Second option, details. You can have the combination gist and details, gist and specific information, or gist, details and specific information. But gist is always going to be there. For gist, we have skimming, which can be used with the titles or which can be used with pictures, or skimming per se, which means reading the first and the last. Okay, to get the main idea, because that is just the main idea. You can get the main idea of an article. You can get the main idea of a paragraph. Okay, you can do it. And for the other details and specific information, it is scanning. Scanning means going through the text quickly, and once you spot the keywords that were given or that were found out in the words that were found out in the questions, you spot the place and you concentrate in that section specifically. Then you can find the detail, or you can find the piece of specific information you need. Okay, but remember, the keywords are very important, and they are not going to read the whole thing. They don't have to understand the whole thing. Okay, they don't have to understand all the words which are involved or which are used in the article, which is nonsense. And then they will find the answers rapidly, more rapidly, and in a better way. As I said before, always have feedback sessions at the end. This is going to make them feel more comfortable. They are going to personalize the knowledge they have gotten, and your classes are going to be more productive. Okay? This is what I wanted to share with you today. I am very happy that you joined us and you could see this presentation, which the only objective is to help you have a different approach from what the typical approach is. I would really like to thank Ispade for this opportunity of sharing all these things with the community. Okay, and I politely ask you to follow Ispade in all their social media, because they are really working for the progress of the community. And these projects of vinculación, of your linking with community, are awesome. So follow Ispade in all the social media. Thank you very much for joining, and I really hope to see you sometime soon. Thank you and bye.